Hi, I'm John Houlihan, and I use my voice as a music supervisor to help shape the creative of music in film and television programs. And you are about to watch my episode of LipRoll.
Welcome to LipRoll. My name is Valerie Morehouse. I have a unique privilege to work with some of today's most influential and iconic voices as a celebrity vocal coach. This is a show where my guests and I are able to peel back the curtain and kind of bring you backstage and paint a picture of what it's like to be an artist, an actor, a broadcaster, and beyond, while still confronting all the challenges of mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. Welcome to LipRoll. Welcome to LipRoll. I'm your host, Valerie Morehouse.
And I'm your co-host, Ella London.
And so shout out to all of our subscribers. And you guys are the reason that we do this.
Absolutely. We love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Love, love.
And our guest today has shaped iconic music moments in over 100 feature films, including Bohemian Rhapsody.
Amazing.
Deadpool 2. Love that one.
Amazing.
The Shape of Water. He is the Senior Vice President of Music for 20th Century Fox Film Studio and Music Supervisor Extraordinaire.
Welcome, John Houlihan.
Hello,
Yay.
hello.
Thank you for joining us today on LipRoll.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So good to have you.
So we're going to do a quick catch up, I guess. You know, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, where did you guys meet? What was the first project? It's pretty recent, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had talked about it when we met, that you had asked somebody who trained Sally for Shape of Water. And I think that's how we met, unless I'm mistaken, which is highly likely.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Valerie, you were working with Sally Hawkins, who phenomenal in her role in Shape of Water, as well as all of her roles. Mm-hmm. But that was just a little tiny warm up to the real deal one that we just dove into, which is called The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Yes.
And we can't talk about that one too much today because
it's all top secret,
still
guys.
in pre-production.
Yes.
But it's going to be an amazing, dramatic, emotional movie. It's not a musical, but there are, I don't know, upwards of 10 or more on-camera music performance moments.
Right.
And you worked with our number one on the call sheet to prep her vocals.
Right.
It's Jessica Chastain, who I believe has been announced, so we can talk about that.
Yes, thank God.
Tammy
Yay.
Faye. So
she was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, to work.
She just kept coming in saying, I'm an actor that sort of sings, and she's a singer. Mm-hmm. I mean,
she's a true talent. I mean,
she really is.
It was for a non-singer to do what she did in the recording studio for us was phenomenal. I can't wait for everybody to kind of see that in the film scenes.
And the way that she grew from the time we started to just a few months later was phenomenal. She'd never been in the studio. She'd never had cans on before. So it was fun to watch that metamorphosis, I think.
Yeah, it was just one of those cases of someone with true talent and with an incredible kind of work, regimen and dedication and diligence to prep and executing what she does. So we're
very excited.
Yeah, can't wait to hear more. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we'll have John back on.
Definitely.
And we're done. No, we'll have
and goodbye.
No, we'll have John back on another time when we can actually talk about it. But
it will be.
It's going to be a
good episode, the Tammy Faye episode.
It's going to be a showstopper, guys.
Dive deep on that.
Yes, exactly.
Hit that subscribe button for when it comes out. So shall we dive into the film Bohemian Rhapsody? We even have the vinyl right here.
Oh, we're so lucky.
Look at this.
Look, it's beautiful. We got it in vinyl.
And it's got yellow on it.
Bohemian Rhapsody was a great project to be involved with. And through most of my career, I've been a music supervisor, but I'm now a creative music executive at the film studio. I kind of quote went in-house.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of a different role. Mm-hmm. Some films, it's kind of exactly the same role, working with the filmmakers and the studio and getting all the creative and business of the music executed. But in this case, we did have a full-time music supervisor on it because it was shot in and around London, and her name was Becky Bentham. She's incredible. I'm a huge fan of hers. She did one of my favorite movies of all time called Sing Street, which was out just a few years ago. And I remember I saw it on a plane. They always say about altitude on a plane, it makes you more emotional, whatever. I was crying my eyes out during Sing Street, and the minute the plane landed, I'm just calling Becky Bentham. I had to get her on the phone. Like, that was amazing. I mean, that's one thing about the music supervision community is it's a pretty specific skill set, and it's a pretty tough job where you have so many forces in the universe against a movie or a television episode having great music, because there's, you know, business pitfalls, there's creative pitfalls, there's time and schedule challenges, there's always money challenges. So anytime a music supervisor, at least anytime I see a project where somebody finished a film or an amazing episode or even a season or a series, and the music is outstanding, it's like I know how much work went into that, and hats off to them, and we really have a mutual admiration.
Well, the music is everything. I mean, it's what causes emotion. I love what you said about crying on a plane, because before you walked in, we were prepping and talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, and I had seen it. I was with a client, and I was coming back from New York. And I remember the Live Aid scene, because I remember I had just left England. I was raised in England, and being gutted that I wasn't at Wembley for Live Aid. And I remember crying my eyes out on the plane. I was like, oh my God, I gotta stop this. And it's what music does to you.
It's interesting these days too. And actually I spoke about this with the Tammy Faye filmmakers, which is things where real life footage exists. People after the fact are going to compare your scene to real life.
Of course.
And Live Aid, somebody on YouTube did a split screen where they were showing, you know, the film Bohemian Rhapsody and the Live Aid side by side, and they showed, and in this case, it was great, and it's due to Graham King, the amazing producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, and the entire crew and all the craftspeople, and Rami Malek. I mean, Rami studied every shimmer, every shake, every position on the mic stand.
He was amazing.
So when we had that test side by side, the AB, Bohemian Rhapsody film came out pretty well, looking like, wow, they really recreated that.
I was absolutely shocked, because I watched that side by side, and I was just like, This is miraculous.
And the music is, I mean, it's iconic.
It is.
Well, also it's kind of unusual that when a film ends, you can have a great music scene like that at the end that's 4 or 5 songs long, you know, and then into some special song moments in the end titles, and nobody wanted to end. It didn't get old. It was really satisfying. I mean, you felt like you were at a Queen concert. And to that end, Paul Massey, our film mixer who did the final film mix, he won an Oscar for it, him and his sound team, which was well deserved. But he was lucky where he got to go to O2 Arena, where Queen was playing. This is maybe 2 months before we were filming the movie. He went to O2 to a real Queen thing, and he had the venue all day, and he put maybe 35 microphones all through the O2 venue in London, and he played just vocals alone. Music track alone. He just made his own reverbs, and he was able to use all that stuff when he was putting together the mix for the Wembley scene. And the whole mix for the whole movie is extraordinary. So it was a dream team. I was just really lucky to be part of it.
And speaking of kind of having to obviously replace lyrics, obviously we don't have Freddie Mercury with us to be able to sing the moments in the movie, and there were a lot of transitions and different things. And I know that Rami, you know, sang a few intro lines, you know, as you know, it's like was in the acting, but it's like the scene that I remember from the movie is when he's auditioning for the band
at the bus,
right at the beginning of the band Smile, which I love that it was called that.
That's accurate to real life.
Exactly. And of course, we don't have a recording of Freddie singing that. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey of finding somebody who could represent Freddie?
Yeah, well, Queen is amazing in many ways. And one of the tiny, nerdy, small ways that they're amazing is their archives of all their work is unbelievable. They've digitized everything. And in the movie, there's a scene where they're kind of on borrowed time, sneaking into a studio basically from midnight till 8 a.m. when the real paying client gets there. And that actual recording that Queen made in real life back in the 70s, that exists, and they've digitized it, and they have every hi-hat separated, and they have a team of people who look after their archives. So part of the pleasure of working on Bohemian Rhapsody was getting the chance to work with Jim Beach, the legendary manager of Queen, and, you know, meeting and interacting just slightly for me, much more for other people with Brian May and Roger Taylor, and it was just amazing. But the Queen Inc. or whatever they're called, Queen Limited, you know, they've got this amazing team of people who digitize everything. So they have all of Freddie's. They have Freddie's Live Aid vocal separate. They have everything that can be separated and digitized on its own track. So we had a wealth of resources to work from to make that music sound great. And, with cameras panning across the stage in a scene, and it's the guitar. Paul Massey, has the ability to turn up the guitar track a little bit as the camera's doing perspective and just really put you there in the thing. Yeah. But obviously, things that they don't have of Freddie Mercury's real voice is something like an incidental meeting up in a parking lot and harmonizing together. So we had it's been out in the press. Mark Martel is it's amazing. He's an amazing.
You found him in
Freddie.
Nashville, right? Is it Nashville?
He got involved with Queen many years before the movie, and there's an incredible thing of him singing. I can't remember which song it was, but he's singing, kind of auditioning in his home studio out of Nashville. He's a guy from Quebec, and his voice is uncanny. He's just a gifted guy or whatever. So he was able to sing "Doing All Right" was the name of that really early song, and Rami trained to sing and really sang on the day and all of that stuff. But in the final, blend, sweetening with Mark and everything, it just made it sound like Freddie Mercury harmonizing with those guys, and it was a great moment.
It was a really beautiful moment. I watch it because I had the clip online, so I just watch it over and over. I just think it's a really special moment.
Because the one, just to clarify for the listeners, because we've had this conversation off air. So the scene where Rami comes and he auditions for them, and they're in the bus, and it's after the show, so that they understand that was the sort of the Freddie Mercury double that did that for us. And then Rami, he lip sank to that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I would say 97% of all films with on-camera scenes, even if it's the person who's singing's real voice, it's what we call playback. You have the pre-recorded track, you roll it, and there's a lot of reasons you do that. It's really hard to record live on set. Really time-consuming, really expensive. And there's just so many variables where if you do that, I'll consider it valuable pre-production on a movie. When you do the pre-records, like we did with Jessica, we now can block out those songs. Think of the weight that's off of the actor's shoulders by having that vocal recorded, perfected there, and then they don't lip sync like, they'll make noise on set. They'll blow. You'll see the throats moving. You'll see the breath and all that stuff. You see the breath in that Queen scene,
which is so cool
because it was cold out in the back.
Outside.
It was good because Rami was just amazing. He was all over it.
Yeah, he was terrific.
You would have never known, if you don't know about the behind the scenes, you just think that it's just happening right there in the moment.
Yes, and let's hope that they're not mad at us talking about it now. So.
Don't worry, there's lots of articles.
It's fine. Okay. So John, what was your favorite story working with Brian May and Roger Taylor?
Oh, yes.
Of Queen.
Well, they're incredibly gracious, smart, creative people, and especially Jim Beach, the manager. They were intensely involved with the whole thing. I mean, just one little sliver of a story is there was one day in Abbey Road when we were finishing pre-records, and they came in to kind of check in on some of these things and give their creative input. And so there's Roger is there first, and Roger's there with this guy who just had to be his son. Looked just like him. And then Brian shows up, and again, another young guy. It's like has to be his. Wow. I'm like thinking myself in my head, it's cool. They brought their kids, to the sesh. I mean, they were young adults, but it's like it's cool, Yeah. But little did I know, those were our actors who were playing them. So it was Ben Hardy and Gwilym Lee.
That's right.
And but just the fact that they had such a strong physical resemblance, and those guys were super gracious with their time. I mean, literally, drum lessons, guitar lessons, and helping the actors, own it. And the actors were, on their own, really accomplished and dedicated, but everybody inspired by Rami, I think, and Graham King, just to be like giving it their all. Everybody did their homework on this movie. Nobody, and even down to the prop master and things like that. People, it was so fortunate that we shot it in the UK because Queen, obviously huge worldwide, but royalty in the UK.
Royalty.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're the prop master on the Queen thing. You are dead accurate on that exact guitar strap on that thing, you know, down to the point. I was speaking with somebody on the crew who was telling me that there's a scene where Freddie Mercury carries a purse that they saw in photographs. It's like not like a handbag.
Handbag.
It's a European.
We call it a handbag.
It's a
for
European
man bag.
man bag.
Yes, he was fashion forward man bag. You
Yes.
know. So anyway, it's this brown historically accurate thing, and the prop master asked Freddie's good friends who were consulting on the thing, what did he carry in his bag? And they said, let me think. From that year, a pack of cigarettes, comb for his hair, a copy of Architectural Digest. So they went out and got vintage Architectural Digest, vintage cigarette packet, everything, put it in the bag. You never open the bag.
Just to know that it was there, to
Yeah.
make the authenticity of that.
Yeah,
It's
and that's just like a real blessing. Rami knew the depth of everybody's prep on that, and you know, you don't have to
Those
think.
things matter. They do. They matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, and of course, you know, there's as far as Queen goes, they've got an extensive discography. Of course, there must have been songs that you wish could have been in there that weren't. Do you any particular ones that popped into mind that you wish could have been in the movie?
I think that the perfect balance was struck. Like I said, you know, Graham King, the amazing award-winning producer, and Jim Beach. I mean, there was a lot of thought put into it, and some songs that weren't heard were referenced. You know, like "You're My Best Friend" or whatever. So, and then the question came up: Do you put those in the end title or whatever? But it's like, you know, hey, the story was told. There was still dozens and dozens of songs in there, and I think everybody got their fill.
I definitely did. I felt like I totally agree with you on that. It just felt like when you finished it, you weren't going, "Oh, I wish this was in there." So it was just.
It felt pretty covered.
It felt pretty covered, and like you said, the references were
even
great.
on some deeper tracks, like the Queen, kind of the rock, harder rock classic, "Hammer to Fall," you know, and they. You could have been shrewd and taken one song out of the Live Aid sequence at the end, and maybe that would have been the one, because it's not "We Are the Champions" or you know, those other glorious, you know, true anthems. But it was kept in, and I think that satisfied the deeper fans.
Yeah, everybody who hasn't seen that film, go watch it. It was amazing. Yeah,
and watch
we
it
love
on a good sound system.
Good, yes, for
whatever
sure.
And if you don't have a good sound system at home,
Go
plug
find
stuff
one.
in the back of your TV and run extra
Right.
speakers and have a special Bohemian Rhapsody. The mix is really extraordinary, and the music kind of deserves
I
that.
watched it on the plane, and I've got, you know, pretty good headset going on there. But I had to rewatch it again at home with my speakers in the ceiling and them coming out from the sides, and you know, it was a different experience.
Surround
Like,
system.
so it's the 10th anniversary of the Guild of Music Supervisors next year. Is that right?
Yeah.
And the founding members.
It's you.
Yes. Let's hear a little bit more about that.
Well, when I first started in this industry, there was maybe 5 or 6 music supervisors in the world,
Right.
you know, or at least called that, you know, 5 or 6 in Hollywood doing it. And it was kind of a occupation in a little hidden valley, and not many people knew about it, because it was a strange sort of one foot in the film business, one foot in the music business.
Right.
And neither business understood what music supervisors did. So now these days there's college courses about music supervision, and it's like we have the you know, jumping forward in the Guild, we have conferences, we have awards, we have all this stuff. But when we started, it was kind of like DVDs had just leveled out, DVD sales, and Hollywood was going through a seismic shift, and Napster was ripping down the brick and mortar record business.
I remember that clearly.
Yeah.
I said singers are going to be in trouble. Just wait.
Yeah, and the soundtrack business was greatly affected by not just Napster and illegal downloading, but being able to download one single. You know, so let's say the original Charlie's Angels movie that I worked on, we had our hit single was Independent Women Part 2 by Destiny's Child. Back in that day, if you wanted that song, you had to buy the entire CD. That was your only choice. Go into Tower Records, go into Virgin Records, whatever, buy that CD. And what does that mean? That means that the record company gets $18.99 and, Rick Springfield, track 9 on that CD, he gets a royalty ride. Lucky, music supervisors who have a royalty participation get a participation in the financial success of that. So cut to maybe 3 years later, where a project I didn't work on, but something like Step Up the Streets, I remember that, was kind of a industry-changing mile marker for me, because they had a huge hit single. I want to say it was Flow Rida.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
But that was when the writing was on the wall and the dynamic changed, and they sold 2.5 million downloads of Flow Rida at 99 cents or $1.29, and they only sold 200,000 of the full album. So if Rick Springfield wasn't in Step Up the Streets, but if Rick Springfield was track 11,
I'm just imagining
he would have got a 12, but nobody had that royalty ride. There wasn't that huge revenue stream. The bandwidth of it had been cut down to something really specific, only those involved with the Flow Rida track.
Right.
So that meant soundtrack labels were much less interested in putting out albums with films unless it was a musical or something kind of exceptional. So there was kind of forces like that looming around that started making it really tough to make it as an independent music supervisor. And this was actually before television exploded to what we call peak TV now. Now it's a great time to start your career as a music supervisor. Because there are literally, let me get my piece of the $8 billion of Netflix. They got, so there's a lot, Apple TV, Amazon, everything is just, it's a space race, for episodes and series. So there's a lot of jobs for music supervisors and a lot of licensing opportunities. But anyway, at the time when the guild was about to form, the community was kind of reeling from these changes and sort of hurting. So we kind of get together and what can we do? Because even frankly, the studios were sort of picking on us. Our old fee precedents weren't being honored. Hey, just because you made that on their last 4 movies here at Blank Studios, we're paying you half now. Or not hiring you. And we're thinking, why are we not getting hired on seemingly music-driven film? And then the film studio music department would tell us we've been mandated by our boss, since there's no soundtracks and we're not making a big profit off the music package of this film, we're not going to spend money on a fee for a music supervisor or keeping everything in-house. So there was a lot of things collapsing down. So we formed the guild mostly just to say, hey, we're here. Here's what we do. Music supervisors perform a valuable, service, and to this day, I still talk to directors and producers who don't quite realize the role a good music supervisor can play in helping them develop a score, helping them not have to throw out the score or fire the composers or re-record at, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So I can think of films I was on that I played an important creative role to keep a score in, and that saved the studio really $600,000 from having to hire a new composer and do new orchestral sessions. So, but the industry largely didn't know what we did. It was a little too, mystical or it was like a black art of they didn't know what we did, but
all they're doing is sending us songs. We can do that, and it's not really understanding the depth of what you actually do. So the guild is really
out there to tell the story of what the music supervisor does and how they're an important member of the core creative team of filmmaking or television making or video games. And now we've got video game music supervisors. We've got advertising music supervisors. So
you just blew it wide open. I'm listening to this. It's a very interesting story because it reminds me on just for myself, a much smaller level is being sort of like the ghost child, where you think, well, this is the most obvious step for singers.
Yeah. And whoever said up front, we cannot afford a vocal coach on this. It's sort of like you can't afford not to. It's going to cost you penny wise, pound foolish. It's going to you have 2 weeks of tour dates down. Then you should have spent the money up front.
And
then
and even in the
singer.
studio when they don't, you have a producer, but oftentimes the producer is not. They're not a vocal technician. They know what they want artistically, but they don't know how to bridge the gap between technique to the artist. And so I'll go in and help the artist wade through that if they're not want, getting something they need. And it makes the session go faster, so that the label or whomever is paying doesn't have to pay as much. We'll get something done in 2 hours instead of 5 hours. So it's putting that in.
And the same as what you do as a music supervisor, and sharing that, with people and letting people know, hey, that's just like, the vocal coach does for the singer, you're doing for the movie or the TV show.
Yeah, it's a shame that we have to go out and in addition to working hard and around the clock and on Sundays and on Mother's Day and whatever, in addition to that, we have to go out and advocate for ourselves and educate people. I mean, actually the thing that concerns me about this wild, production, thing with all the funny money from Netflix making all this production happen, there are so many inexperienced film producers and even directors, that don't know. They've just been rushed into doing a series for Apple TV or whatever, and they don't know the true craft and the depth of what you need to really get it done the right way.
Just really quickly here, obviously, like you said, it's such a saturated market now, and so many opportunities for music supervisors with all of the streaming services now. Do you have any advice for young people who are looking at someone like yourself and going, oh wow, I really want to be doing something like this?
That's tricky. I mean, I advise people all the time, family, friends who get referred to me, just people who look me up and literally email me, hey, I'm interested to get in, and nobody helped me breaking into the business. So I kind of feel like I know I worked my butt off and whatever, and had a lot of good luck and good fortune. So not like I have to give back, but it's like, it's good karma to say, hey, here's what I recommend. I don't know. I always say the decision I made when I got started was what I would still recommend, which is try to get on the team of somebody who's successful doing major titles and major projects, and learn the craft, even if it's taking a demotion, even if it's that it could be a huge pay cut, or whatever. But when I started music supervision, I was really lucky to get a job for Sharon Boyle, who did Silence of the Lambs and Married with Mom, all these great movies. But I was a huge fan of Sharon's work, and at that time I had my own independent record label in New Jersey, and I just moved. I was managing bands, and I had a lot of contacts, I had a lot of information. I could have started going out on my own and trying to music supervise films that would be at Sundance or things that were foreign financed, but quite set up at a U.S. studio. And I could have clawed my way in, from the outside, but I decided to, take a huge pay cut, check my ego at the door, and go be just a literal bottom person on the totem pole for Sharon Boyle of she had 4 employees underneath her, and I said that I'd experience answering phones and making coffee, and then she hired me, and I had to learn how to make coffee, and I had to figure out the phones as well.
Can you teach me?
The details.
I didn't say I had good experience on those things, but anyway, but it was blessing that kind of helped give me everything, because one of the first films I got to sink my teeth into with Sharon Boyle, that she was music supervisor, was Mr. Holland's Opus. And
one of my favorite films of all time.
A great music movie, and there were so many aspects of music supervision and just the way that music and film interact. I mean, that was literally, I consider that my grad school in music supervision. That's like 10 films in one. It took me probably the 10 films after that, I still didn't learn as much as I did on Mr. Holland's Opus. Michael Kamen, the late Michael Kamen, great composer, he scored part of that in London. He scored part of it in Los Angeles. He scored part of it in Seattle. So those were the 3 major scoring hubs at the time, all within 4 months. I got to make contacts in all those markets with those contractors and those things. I got to understand how scheduling works, how much it costs to bring a team over, all those nuts and bolts things of the craft of music supervision. We had on-camera student musicals, so we had to interact. Sharon was, in deep with the prop masters and the this and that, and everything about that. We had John Lennon Imagine, and we courted the idea of a Beatles song before we switched to Imagine, and I got to understand what the Beatles committee dealing with them was like.
It's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts.
And it's like when you get to kind of just dive in on that level, and that, you know, so I think, you know, for young people to know that, you know, you don't try to race to the top. Take your time, learn your art.
Surround yourself by people who know more than you know.
People.
It's a limited playing field. Get on the field, get recognized, build your contacts, be patient. I mean, we used to joke.
Patience.
Yes.
Patience, people. Yes.
We used to joke, you know, if you take an assistant and put them on a dub stage, you know, for one half day on their own, they're ready to leave your company and go out and music supervise their own film the next day. And it's sort of like, it's the recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So. I wish more people understood that. I'm like, as what you said, I'm like, nobody helped me. All right. I have to be kind. Yes. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of LipRoll with John Houlihan.
Yeah, it's been
great. And don't forget to
subscribe. And
yes.
Yeah, I was listening to the Frankie Pine episode, which was awesome. Frankie's amazing. And you know what? I learned from Frankie's episode. You know, you can always keep learning. I'm a perpetual student of the game. And
that's what makes you good.
Every person who's good at their craft never thinks, oh, I know it all, kick their feet back. There's always something to learn. And I learned from Frankie's, and I'm going to learn from the rest of your podcasts.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, John. It's the best.
Thanks.
Thank you.